We got the Rocky Ridge crew on this time. We got Trent, Katie, and Skip Smith, and we might have Kane hop on at some point.
That's right.
Younger son Mitch is observing, learning.
Yeah. But, yeah. If we want to jump into the beginning, or if you want to start out with a little more intro, you guys have Rocky Ridge Ranch that if people have listened to the podcast previously, you've probably heard us talk about. So, rodeo company, stock contractor.
The ranch kind of, I guess, got started here anyway, I guess, when me and Kate kind of met. We were in the process of putting up the indoor arena, and that was in the very, very early stages of it, but we were putting it up. At that time, I was probably 21 or 22, and I still had in my brain that I thought I was going to ride bulls, and it was going to be a place to practice bulls, riding bulls in the wintertime. I rode one bull in that arena. And from there, it's grown from that. My dad and my uncle both rode bulls when they were young. My uncle quit probably in his late teens riding. Dad continued to ride. I was a young kid when I remember Dad still riding bulls. And then he got hurt one time up in Tyrone. And that was the last time he rode. He started steer wrestling after that. And then I started steer wrestling. I started at the age of 14. I rode my first bull when I was 14. And I went from there. So, yeah. that's how it got started. As far as the ranch, we put the building up. We added some wing. Once we put the building up, we already had people ask us about, boarding horses here. Everybody wanted to use the indoor, which at that time, there wasn't a lot of indoor arenas. I mean, they were kind of unheard of. I feel like everyone has them now. But they asked us about boarding horses. We put wings on both sides with stalls. When we put wings on, then they wanted to do more. We already had the cattle and stuff from dairy farming and raising longhorns. So we started to build the outdoor arena. It grew also. We started putting fun shows on and kind of sortings and team pennants. And Dad always had in his mind he wanted to put on a rodeo. That was his dying goal. And for some reason it had to be a high school rodeo. So I don't even know if it was. Our first rodeo wasn't a high school rodeo, was it?
No, it was not.
No. So I don't know how long we've been putting rodeos on now.
I believe our first one was 2016, September 2016.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how long the high school rodeo has been coming the past several years, at least one show a year. I would say they've been here probably 5 or 6 years at least. But we mainly put on, our first year we did one rodeo or two?
We did one rodeo the very first year. That was APRA sanctioned rodeo. We had a rodeo company from New York that helped us out with that first show. The next year we did more, and we also had partnered with another rodeo company to help out with stock till we grew our stock herd. And
yes.
Now we have all of our own stock.
When we were, since she brought it up, people don't think about the stock you need for a rodeo. We always kind of had longhorn cows and stuff because of steer wrestling. Even when we milked cows, we had some longhorns. And different times, Dad would try and raise a Brahma bull from a Holstein cow and stuff. And we had a farm up the road where, as a probably 8-9-year-old kid, I used to drive the truck up there, and we had an old silo. We shoveled silage out of that silo. And he had a Brahma bull up there that he thought was, going to make something someday. But that thing was mean, and he would chase you. You had to basically pull him with the truck and right away take off running for the silo and get him fed so that he was distracted, or else he'd come after you. But yeah, that's a big thing that people don't realize is the stock you need. Once we started putting on rodeos and they grew, then we realized how much stock we needed. We're lucky enough now to have basically all the stock that we need, aside for maybe sheep at this point for mutton busting, but all the stock we need to put on a rodeo.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about what all that is for people that aren't aware?
You got your bucking bulls, obviously. Bucking bulls, as far as putting a rodeo on around in this area, you need all sorts. Mainly, if you want lots of guys to come ride bulls, you need something they can actually ride, something that's not going to chase them down and kill them. You don't need PBR bulls, but you need nice, gentle, old bulls. And that's what we try and focus on, is having that kind of stock for the guys to try and grow the cowboys that we have. And I feel that has worked. That plan has definitely worked over the years. In the beginning, we didn't. When we were bringing bulls in, some guys brought some pretty heavy bulls in and stuff. And I remember one rodeo we had, I think, 2-3 bull riders in there. And we were trying to gather guys up, and we couldn't. And that's what we bucked out for the night, was 2 or 3 bull riders. And that's when we realized what we needed to do to go forward. So now it's crazy. We have novice bull riding, junior bull riding, and regular bull riding. And we average probably somewhere between, 25-ish, as far as bulls that we buck out for a rodeo. We have bucking horses. Last year we had 8. This year we have 5 currently. We got steers. We're pretty well set in the cattle department. We got out of milking cows because we were doing contracting work and stuff to pay the bills, and the dairy industry was bottomed out when I was in my early 20s. So we sold the milking cows and started raising longhorns, and now we have more cows than we have ever had. We have probably somewhere around 220 head. Nobody even knows. It's crazy. They're everywhere.
They just get fed every day.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Just standing around.
So the biggest thing we struggle with is probably our tie-down calves. Because tie-down calves, obviously, for them guys, we try and keep small, good calves for them. Our longhorn calves do well. They're hardy. But it's just hard to keep a small calf all summer long for a rodeo, so...
Gotcha. So, how'd your dad get into rodeo and all that?
The way I see it, I guess, is it was kind of a more of a lifestyle back then, in rural America, especially with farm kids. There's quite a few old timers. I call them old timers now, but basically Dad's age. They were the guys going around rodeoing, and they didn't travel, I guess, like we have to now, in a sense. There was rodeo arenas all around. Backyard,
a lot of fairs.
Yeah, backyard arenas and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can name, even Kane's pap. Kane's pap and 2 of his brothers. So there's a family of 5 kids, and I think 3 of them rodeoed. So there's a lot in this area. There's a lot of old timers with rodeo history. So it was just kind of, I guess, a farm kid's way of life back then.
Yeah. I feel like that's interesting now because, I don't know, like me growing up, you barely heard about it. It was like at the farm show complex, there'd be like 1 or 2 a year or whatever. And that's like all you really knew about. But it seems like it's been kind of coming back around. There's more at like some of the fairs and stuff. We're starting to do them again too, but
yeah, I think it definitely died off for a while. We're lucky to have the Amish community because, a lot of them guys have, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's quite a few guys at rodeo that have Amish backgrounds and stuff, and at least they're still crazy enough to do it. So
Yeah, they're built different.
Yeah. But so you talked about you bull rode and steer wrestled and stuff growing up. Is that all you did, or?
I rode broncs. I calf roped. I learned pretty young how to rope. I mean, I was probably 15, 16. Barry Smith taught me how to rope, taught me how to shoe horses. I thought I was going to be a horseshoer for a while. He did too. He was all for it. And yeah, we just had a bad experience one day. It was hot, and I had a horse kick a nail through my hand, and I thought, oh, I'm over that. So there's easier ways to make money.
Yeah.
But no, he taught me to rope. He was a real good roper. He had some crazy stories from back in Dave Martin days and stuff. Just one I'll say real quick. I learned a lot from Barry. He was very independent, but he would rope calves by himself. You think when we do practice pens, everybody brings help and stuff, and sometimes you get frustrated waiting on help, and you try and set it up to do yourself. Well, Barry had his arena set up where he could calf rope himself, and he was calf roping one day, and he got hung up in the stirrup, and the horse drug him around for probably, he said, about 2 minutes, and busted him up pretty good. He thought he was going to die, but he didn't. He made it through it. But yeah, I was at that point when I calf roped. I had the arena rigged up to where I could calf rope by myself, but then Kate came along. She was pretty good help too, so...
Ironically, we met at Barry Smith's team penning. That used to be, for all the local folks, the rodeo in Ferguson Valley back in the day.
So were you doing rodeo stuff too then?
I grew up on a dairy farm, just like Skip did. I had a horse at a young age and did a lot of showing. I showed beef cattle as well, and I always wanted to combine the two. So I kind of got into rodeo through team penning, and that's where Skip and I met at Barry Smith's. And yeah, just our love and passion for all of this grew, and that's how we kind of grew this together. He brought up Dave Martin, and that brings back some memories of how we got started here as well. When we went to get panels to set up our outdoor arena, Dave used to own Bull Ride Mania and Fredonia, and he would have a bull sale out there every year in May. And he would also sell panels, and we went out to buy panels, and that's actually where we bought our first rodeo bull. It was a calf out of his Silverado bull. It's now our bull mutton chops is what we call him, but he's probably the oldest rodeo stock that we have here. He actually still bucks at our rodeos, but he's a real good practice bull for people. He will throw a couple hops in there and then stop, let you reset, and get back to it. But if you look at him, you'd wonder how he ever gets off the ground. But I think that's where Trent sort of got his love for bulls from.
Yeah, he definitely likes to eat. He can be a little full sometimes, but I guess that's part of a bull.
Yeah. So we have Trent on, who's your boy.
Yep.
And
my oldest.
When did you start? Because you're bull riding now. Well, junior bulls.
Well, I was starting to get on calves. I'd say around 8 or 9, probably. So definitely doing a lot more now than then, obviously.
Just to clarify, Trent was scared to get on his first one, so Mitch actually got on a calf first before Trent.
And Mitch is 2 years younger than Trent.
Yeah, Trent
I
couldn't.
was scared then, but now we absolutely love it. It's crazy how it changes. But yeah.
But yeah, so kind of went over starting out and what you guys are kind of doing now. Do you have any good stories you feel like sharing? If not, as they pop up, we'll share them. But
Well, I guess. Everybody always asked you if you ever got hurt. Mine has a story with that. My worst accident was when I was 17. I was at that time I was going down to Ernie Hostetler's pretty regularly. He has a practice night every Monday night at 7, still does. But at that time I was in high school rodeo, and there was a group of us that would meet there, and we rode bucking horses and bulls. I had gotten roughed up pretty good in the bull riding, and was kind of just frustrated with being sore all the time. Hands were sore, legs were sore. I felt like I got stepped on probably 50% of the time. I don't know if it was because I couldn't land on my feet or just trying to not give up and getting drug under the bull or something, but I was really getting roughed up. So I switched to, I bought a Saddle Bronc saddle off of Mike's Swear Engine up in New York, and I had, started riding Saddle Bronc horses. Had went to one of Mike's schools actually and stuff, and had committed pretty heavily to it at the time. I was getting on a few horses a week at that point. But anyway, I always, at that time I had a lucky penny. I always kept my boot and stuff, and I was a little bit superstitious. I was 17, but that particular day I had a Camaro. I went out from the end of school at the end of the day, and I had locked my keys in my Camaro. And I thought, oh, crap. So I got my mom. She brought my other set of keys up. I got my Camaro unlocked. And I was, already racing around to try and get to Ernie's at 7 o'clock. Came home, did the feeding and stuff, and booked it down the road. We get down there, and just everything felt a little off for some reason. I didn't feel off, but everything else felt off. I was putting powder in my boots, and my penny was gone in my boot, in my left boot. I'm like, it was nowhere to be found. And I'm back there, I'm getting my gear ready and looking around, and, everybody else getting their gear ready. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, it's nowhere. I'm looking through the dirt, brushing the dirt around. My penny is gone. And I'm like, okay, like, get through this, So I go, and the horse I actually had picked to get on, I was already on it 3 times. And it was actually a riding horse that they used as a bucking horse also. It was MS, and the stupid thing, it reared up on me 2 times before that and pinned me in the back of the chute, but I knew I could ride it, so that's what I got on. And I got on it, I rode it, went out, made the 8 seconds, and one of the pickup men, he rode up beside me there, and he's like, hey, grab the saddle. And I'd never grabbed the saddle before. When I went to Mike's school, and back in that time, anyway, everybody was to double grab the rope. That's what we were taught. And so I'd always double grab the rope. Well, that's what he said, and he was right there beside me, so I grabbed the saddle, the front of the saddle. And that horse in particular had a lot of drop in the front end, and when I grabbed that saddle, it was like a rocket ship for me down underneath that thing, and he trampled all over me. But I got 2 metal plates on the side of my head from it now. I thought he broke my ribs and my back. I think he got every part of me except my vest. He had a hoof print up halfway up my back, so he got up under my vest with one of them, and I knew it was a bad wreck. Everybody else knew it was a bad wreck. My vision went dark for, I don't know, I would say probably 30 seconds. I never was knocked out, but I knew it was bad. I stood up and was kind of stumbling around. Someone came out and grabbed me, and I don't know who that was, but we walked to the bucking chutes there, and I had a ringing in my ears. Everything was numb. I reached up, and I had blood all over my hand. I reached up the side of my head and had blood all over my hand, and I thought, oh man, I thought I had blood coming out of my ear, and I thought that it was internal. It turned out I got lucky. He just ripped the bottom of my ear off. So
Lucky.
So I made the ride to Hershey. They did a CAT scan and stuff. A week later, I had a reconstructive surgery. Lost my cheekbone. I have a metal cheekbone now. I have a metal plate holding my eye socket together. It all worked out. A few months earlier, I had a bull. He hit me with his horn. I didn't wear a helmet at the time. He hit me with his horn up the side of my head, and he put basically a hole right beside my eye in my skin, and had broken my jaw at the same time. I didn't know my jaw was broken, but I knew I couldn't open it. So when the horse re-broke it, I was able to, they told me, that my jaw was broke before, and I said, I figured, because I couldn't open my jaw very good. And they said, well, we'll get it fixed now. So it all worked out.
2-for-1 deal.
Yeah.
But
So that's that story. But yeah.
yeah, it's pretty wild. I think it's fun to look back and tell some of the wreck stories, but there's been some pretty gnarly ones that I've heard. So, but so I don't know if you want to talk about it more either. But like I brought up a little bit, you guys have been kind of talked about on a lot of the podcasts, or at least brought up, because you seem to do a lot as far as helping out guys that haven't had any background in it, but it's something they've, for whatever reason, want to try, or something they've always wanted to do. So I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, or if you want to talk about any of the guys, or
I mean, that was the reason we do that, I feel, and Dad's always been a big stickler to that as far as helping guys and growing guys. When I was young, Tim Slater was a big steer wrestler at the time, and that's all Tim did, was he helped everybody become a steer wrestler. And there was rodeos. Steer wrestling was a big thing at that time too. I mean, it was nothing to get 40 to 50 guys entered steer wrestling. I mean, now you're struggling to get 10 guys. So Tim had always had really good horses, or made really good horses. And there was rodeos that I went to that I would see that horse take every guy out of the box, for that performance anyway. That's how willing he was to help out. And so, when we steer wrestled here, we tried to do the same thing. We always tried to leave people use our horses. We've had quite a few good horses of our own. Got to make a few of our own, and we've always tried to put people that are trying to learn on good horses, because it makes a huge difference. As far as, I guess, my background in the bronc riding, the bull riding, I do my best to help them guys also. It's just a little harder because you can only do so much in them events. You can show them how to do everything, but you can't go out there and ride with them. Once that chute opens,
they're on their own.
They're on their own. So.
Well, and I feel like that was our goal here when we first had the indoor. Skip said he wanted a place to practice and a place to ride, and just to help individuals. And that has always been a goal of ours, is to share what we have with others and help to further their knowledge and our passion with rodeo and just horse events in general. So it's just kind of become the place, and we have the means to be able to share that with others, and that's what we love to do.
Yeah, I feel, like we talked about, rodeo died off for a few years there, and thank goodness that I feel like it is coming back. There's, fairs everywhere now want rodeos, and we do one. We try to put on as much as we can of a rodeo for the Mifflin County Youth Fair. Mm-hmm. They definitely don't have the arena for a rodeo, but we do what we can there.
Yeah.
When I was 14 or 15, I might have been 16, I guess. Actually, they put on a full rodeo there. I helped out. Carl Leach put that rodeo on, and he had a cool little rodeo gig going at the time, and we was running around, setting up for him and stuff. And we actually, the little wooden arena that we use now was the same little wooden arena back then. But we used to take all them boards off, that whole arena, set up a steel arena, bring bleachers in, set them up. But we had a full rodeo there, and I actually, at 15 or 16, I rode a bull there for one of the rodeos. But Yeah.
Yeah, I feel we've tried to keep with that year after year. We like to host some clinics here now every year. John Lanaweaver helps us out with the bull riding clinic. He's a multi-time APRA champion, qualifier for the first Frontier Circuit Finals. Skip high school rodeoed with John back in the day. But yeah, so he comes out, helps us with that, where we'll have our first kickoff of the year next weekend. We'll start with a Friday night show that we started last year, and that's just something fun we like to do for all the locals that want to run under the lights but aren't quite ready to enter a rodeo yet. And then our bull riding clinic will be on Saturday, the 12th of April.
Yeah, which this will probably come out the Monday after, but
That's okay. Then we will go into May. We're going to have a steer wrestling clinic the first weekend in May. That's typically when we try to have that every year. Tim Slater comes in and helps us out to put that on, and we usually get a lot of guys. There's usually always some rain that weekend, so it makes for some muddy arena conditions, but the guys always have a good time. I know we have a good time. It's just really exciting to see the progression of everybody throughout the weekend, just learning on the dummy and then, running steers out of the chute and then finally getting to run one off of a horse. It's definitely very satisfying, I think, for everybody to see that progression throughout the weekend.
yeah. You gonna jump one?
Yeah, at some point.
You've been too quiet for too long.
Listen, I didn't got the stories my dad has. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
But no,
don't
steer
want that.
wrestling is a super good time, for sure. If you want to get into it, it's definitely something to come to. You can learn a lot in that weekend. I'll say that
Yeah.
for sure. But
Yeah, Zach, who was the last podcast, since where he started was at one of your guys' clinics.
look where he's at now.
A blown apart knee.
Blown apart. Yes, rodeo is rough. We'll say that.
But yeah, and Rooster, who we talked about a good bit. And
Yep.
you guys helped a lot of us out with the rough stock stuff and having some stock that's more suited for guys that have no idea what they're doing. So
Well, I mean, since we're on bringing up the young people and trying to teach them rodeo, that's one thing. When I was a kid, there was, and I feel that there is now again, there's rough stock schools and clinics, steer wrestling clinics, roping clinics. There's a lot of clinics going on now. When I was a kid, there was a lot of clinics going on. But I felt like for a number of years there wasn't, it wasn't that way. I guess another story is when I was in high school, I went up to Mike Swearington's rough stock school, which if you know any of the Swearingtons, they used to have Rawhide Rodeo, which is now All American Rodeo. But they were cowboys for sure. When you went there for a rodeo school, you were if you stuck it out and you got on everything that they wanted you to get on, you pretty much could consider yourself a cowboy when you left. I remember I went up for bronc riding, and I think I got on 5 or 6 horses for the weekend. Friday night was just walkthroughs, basically equipment and procedure in the chute, and then Saturday it got real. It separated the men from the boys. I remember Saturday night till I made it back to the hotel, I had blood down my face that was dried. I knew I was sore all over, but I took my boots off in the hotel room, and both my socks were red. I took my socks off, and both the ends of my toes from hitting the ground so hard, my toenails were all bleeding, and we had to go back Sunday and do it again. But I try and instill, I guess one thing I miss from those days, or maybe it's still there and I just can't see it, is I miss the toughness. I thrived off of seeing tough guys. I mean, real cowboys that were gritty, that weren't afraid to take a hit. If they did take a hit, they got up and they walked out of the arena.
Yeah.
One of my fondest memories was I was a pretty young kid. I was just running around with Dad, watching him steer wrestle at rodeos all over the Northeast. And I think we was at Benton, Pennsylvania for a rodeo. And Dad had steer wrestled. And I was probably maybe 12-ish, something like that at the time. It was before I was rodeoing. But I at that point, I wanted to rodeo. I knew I was going to rodeo, kind of like Trent was. You know, for several years now, he's shown that he's probably going to rodeo a lot in his life. But we was walking out to the car. It was after the rodeo, and there was a cowboy as Bo Bowman. I think he was from Maryland, and he rode bulls, saddle broncs, and barebacks, as far as I know. But we was walking out. It was dark out to the car. And Bo was bent over in front of the headlights in his car. He had a mirror laying on the bumper, and he was stitching somewhere above his forehead, stitching it back shut himself. And I thought he's either on some really good medicine right now, or he's really tough. At that time, I just thought he was really tough. But regardless, that stuck with me. I remember that very vividly. And, you know, he was just doing what he needed to do for the night. But it was an example for me for the rest of my life that he didn't lay in the arena and wait for some paramedic to come get him and take him to the ambulance and stitch him up. He got up and he was doing his job. And he went back and he finished his job himself. And that's what I try to instill in a lot of these guys here is, you know, it may hurt. That's part of it. You know, pain's part of it. Some guys thrive off of it. Some guys can't. But if you're not dead or dying, get up. Get up and get out of the way, because there's guys that, you know, are out there trying to save you or buy you time. And if you don't do that, you could get one of them really hurt also.
Yeah.
So...
yeah, I feel like I've seen a mix. I think there's definitely some of those guys still that are still like dirty tough, like walk out, drink beer with us all night, and next day we find out he broke his pelvis. Like, and then there's some that you're like, okay, are you actually hurt, or are you gonna walk out here in a second after you lay there and everyone's all worried? But
there was a kid that I high school rodeoed with, Shane Kuhn. Shane was an excellent cowboy. He competed in every event except the bareback riding. He did try bareback riding, but he didn't stick with it. But on a regular basis, he competed in every event of the rodeo. Bulls, broncs, team roping, calf roping, saddle bronc riding. My senior year, he was a junior at the time. He broke his arm halfway through the year. And it was, I think, his riding arm and probably his dominant hand. He continued to team rope and do every event with his other arm the rest of the year with a cast on his other arm that he broke. I'm pretty sure he ended up winning the all-around title for the end of the year and stuff. The high school rodeo was really competitive back when I did it. We had probably 40 some guys riding bulls back at that time. All the other events were kind of the same way. There was a lot of girls in it. I know now it's a lot if they get 4 bull riders. So that shows you how the times have changed. But yeah, I guess what we're trying to focus on here at Rocky Ridge Ranch is, I guess, rebuilding that. You know, and there's a lot of interest out there as far as at least local people that want to do something. I had a kid message me last week. All he said was, I want to ride bulls. And I'm like, you know, for the rodeo or like what practice bulls or what? He texted me back, I want to ride bulls. So we'll see how that goes or where it goes. But I guess he's going to come ride bulls, I hope. So we'll do everything we can to teach him to, you know, so he doesn't get killed by it. But hopefully he can experience what riding bulls is all about. So
yeah. I feel like you're gonna just keep seeing it grow with everything that's going on, like social media wise and Cowboy Channel and stuff now. I feel like that's helping, and Dale Brisby blowing up and stuff like that. And I don't know, Yellowstone. I mean, it's not really rodeo focused, but they had the stuff with Jimmy riding
Western
broncs.
focus.
So yeah,
it's Western, and I
But-
feel like that's helped a lot of people to see our way of life, and they want to taste that. They want to see what that's like, and they
Yeah.
want to be involved, and that's just helping to grow our industry here. So
yeah. But do you want to talk any more about the stock contractor side of things? I haven't had anyone on that has anything related to that. So
Well, I guess, okay, it's a different aspect, you know. Recently I got hurt skiing. So now I'm being pushed into where I need to announce rodeos. But every different thing, you know, you take it for granted. You listen to an announcer or you watch a clown in the arena, and people take it for granted that, you know, I could probably do that. Well, I clowned some rodeos. I clowned, 2 years ago, I clowned, I think, my first one, or maybe 3 years ago, I don't know. But I did a couple last year. And there's a whole nother aspect and respect that I have. You know, there's preparation that you don't think about that goes into that stuff. Same with rodeo announcing, I'm finding out. Same with stock contracting. There's a whole nother aspect that goes into it. If you want to put on a good rodeo, have good stock that puts on a good rodeo. If you don't train your stock, if you don't run your calves through, they can't find the out gate. It's a circus. You know, that's what the crowd sees. They see a circus. Again, I had that example of both Dave Martin and Rawhide Rodeo growing up. You know, Sam at Rawhide was a real strickler for the show. Everybody had a job to do, and you were to do that job. And the show kept moving, and it was always really good shows. Dave Martin definitely, like with Bull Ride Mania, had a different aspect or a way of doing things. But at the end of the day, he was after the same thing, was putting on a show and getting it pushed through. So with that being said, we do try and work all our stock the best that we can. Obviously, you're always going to have young stock coming up through to replace your older stock with bulls, horses, steers, whatever. And that younger stuff doesn't always work as good as your older stuff. So, yeah, with that being said, we try, and all our events, we break in all of our stock. We don't throw any fresh, tie down calves out there or team roping steers or anything like that. It doesn't get thrown out there without being run and run through the process first. I feel like with any stock contract, there's always cowboys that will accuse you of that, but that's just young stock again. And if you're in this business long enough or around it, you'll have an understanding of that. If you don't believe it, then you haven't been around it enough.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I didn't realize really until I started helping out a little bit at some of the rodeos, how much goes into just keeping everything moving and flowing well, and the importance of that. Because people come out to see a rodeo, not sit there 5 minutes between stuff happening, or be there all night long. They want to come out, and you're trying to keep it relatively condensed and still get through everything. So
it's a performance. It's live. A lot of times you can't rehearse everything because there's a lot of uncontrollable factors. Probably one of my favorite things I hear announcers talk about, especially when it comes to the steer wrestling, is 5 minds have to come together: the horse, the rider, the hazer, the rider, and the steer. And, when you have a lot of uncontrollable factors, and just like you said, the crowd's here to see a show, and, they don't want to see all the bloopers. Some of them are funny and can add entertainment value to it, but none of that is planned. None of that, happens on purpose. And just trying to roll with it and make the most out of it. There's a lot of preparation that you have to think about, and how you want that to flow and flow smoothly, just what events you put in what order, where you're putting your contract act, where your clown's going to have their acts, so that it sets you up that you can have the bulls loaded and you're ready to roll and, let them come out. Nobody wants to sit there and wait 5 minutes for the chute to crack. They want to continuously see action and, not have laws and things. And there's a lot that goes to that.
Yeah.
There's different times you yourself have helped us put on shows here, and people don't realize behind the scenes what it takes. Everybody says I'm grumpy on rodeo day. I'm not grumpy. I feel like I'm living the dream. But I just know, and I'm constantly running through my head all the things that need done for the show. And it might seem very trivial to some people, but something as little as sticking the right two bulls in the same pen for later that night can make the difference between loading them a matter of 15 seconds versus a matter of 5 minutes back there.
Yeah.
Maybe longer.
So it's the little things, we always try, steer wrestling's our first event at the timed event end. Usually I have, help down there that understands that, get the first 2, 3. We always have them lined up. Your pen's empty and it kind of just flows from there. But if you ever get a chance to work the back pens and stuff, it's its own little, world back there. And that's usually where I'm stuck, is in the back pens with the bulls and the steers coming out, and trying to make everything being 1 or 2 steps ahead of the rodeo. It's not we're just putting steers or calves as they're coming out in a pen. We're also shuffling bulls, to the left and right sides at the same time, so that after the calf roping's done, we're ready to go right into, novice bull riding, and them bulls can load on the sides that they're supposed to be on, and the show flows. Zach is a huge help to me in the back pens, and John Smith. I constantly think about how much longer I'll be able to do it. I feel like an old man back there. But they're 2 younger guys that I definitely can see. They understand, we go through blood, sweat, and tears back there sometimes. And I seriously mean that, all 3.
Well, we say
and you have to apologize at the end of the night. Please don't take anything I said to you during the rodeo to heart.
You know what kind of rodeo it's been. If I go after the rodeo, I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you, but I don't want you to die from some bull, or something. But
it can get hectic back there. We always often say it's a whole nother rodeo behind the bucking chutes, and it truly is. You got to be on your toes the whole time. So.
Yeah, and if you haven't been back there, everything opens 3 different directions, and you're like, put them in that pen. Exactly. That's all the direction you get. How am I supposed to get them there?
Yeah, it is. It's very hectic. Because in an ideal world, you would have 50 pens for 20 bulls, but you don't. And even these road shows and stuff, you don't. We constantly, here we have our little routine, but we hauled 10 of our bulls to a show. Was that last summer or the year before for Sean Zaroka?
I think it was 2 years ago. No.
And we shoved 10 of our bulls on a trailer, 10 bulls that don't normally get along with each other, shoved them all on the same trailer. And they survived the trip, and we get down there, and they have about 2 back pens.
Yep.
So anybody that's ever worked back pens, they understand what I'm talking about, I'm sure. But ideally, you have 1 back pen per 1 bull, or 2 that are buddies that get along. I have a meaner bull that I love. We made the finals last year. Carl, we call him Carl. But he always does a lot better with a buddy bull. And we have a little black buddy bull up there that if Carl gets drawn for the night, they go in the pen together and they get loaded together. Otherwise, Carl's destroying gates, destroying panels, and
maybe humans.
Maybe humans.
So he can get mad quick.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he about got me last year. I was popping latches.
It wouldn't surprise me.
But
we've been working a couple of the problem bowls a little bit there. Last week, Trent and Kane worked them a couple evenings. But I know the cleaner bowl was one of them that they worked. And last summer or the summer before, he got me twice. He took me over the panel twice. But I know I fed him at the end of the week last week. I walked in the pen and gave him a bale of hay, and he was eating off the other side of the bale of hay while I was holding it. So hopefully we're over that with him.
This came a long way.
yeah. Do you still have that red rope and steer that ate everyone's lunch? The one where no one told us about him. He's hiding in with all the other steers, and all of a sudden, like, a guy just gets hooked.
I'm not sure what his number was, but I
It was,
can envision
50.
him.
The
Is it 50?
speckled, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he's speckled, red
Yep.
and white. He's somewhere. I don't know where he's at.
Might ever be at Paps now in
Is
the
he-
fat pen.
Is he the one that tore Clay up?
Yeah, he got Clay. Yeah, he got Clay in the twice actually in the same day in the back pens. It's a mean little steer.
Yeah, he was fun to work around. We're trying to get the other ones out, and he's just trying to eat everyone's lunch for no reason. I'm like, why? But
That just goes to show that some of them animals they ain't scared at all. They're there to play the game too.
yeah,
That's for sure.
Yeah, they're nothing to mess around with.
but Trent, you want to talk about any of your bulls? I know you're into the bull side.
Yeah, I just picked one up a little over a year ago now. It's been last winter, 2023 winter. And yeah, we bucked him last year. And that was my first one. Hoping to definitely get more. But yeah, Dad and Kane, they like to pick on him because he's a big bull. And he's a little bit dumb sometimes, but
When we first came here, he was missing most of his hair. I feel like he was like a
Yeah.
hairless bull. He was all scratched up. I don't know what he went through to get here, but so we came up with all kinds of cool names for him at the time with his no hair, So, but yeah, he has since grown hair and fattened out very well.
yeah, for sure.
So, hopefully he is good enough to make the actual draw pen this year and not the novice bulls. But he definitely added some weight to him.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mention Kane's now sitting in.
That's right.
Kane is now in.
I'm pretty sure you talked, and people are probably like, "Who was that?"
Probably.
Katie switch voices.
She hit puberty.
A little background on Kane. Kane is like a second or third son here, I should say. Third son. He actually lives about a mile out the road. And he's here a lot. And he's a very good help. Helps
Basically
out.
like a brother.
Yeah.
Try my best.
Helps out with the daily routine of the farm and the ranch. And he came, his pap rodeoed and uncles. And so he came from a rodeo background, essentially a rodeo family, I should say.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the biggest reason I got into rodeo. My pap, he always told me, he's like, you should try bull riding. I tried it. I'm getting more in love with it, but then at the same time, I want to do steer wrestling and practicing that. But
Yeah, that's another thing. Me and him have only basically done bulls. We shoot dog and stuff. But I want to try every event because I ain't going to know which event I like the most until I actually try them all. So that's
Yeah.
another thing,
You're just going for that all around.
Maybe. No, definitely going to try them all at some point probably. Just see what options I have out there and see what I like the best.
Yeah,
So
I've seen you run barrels a couple times. You might have been
Yeah.
leading a pony, but I've seen you run
Yeah.
barrels a couple times.
I do know the barrel pattern very well. Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know if you want to keep trying to come up with good stories or not, or talk about goals for the ranch, and if you guys want to talk about your goals going forward, rodeoing and stuff.
Well, I'm sure you boys, I would hope at this point, if you're going to keep riding bulls, have goals
Yeah.
to reach towards. I think think it's important for anybody starting out to make realistic goals. It'd be real fun to sit here as a young kid and say, my goal is to ride the PBR. That could definitely be a very realistic goal, but how do you get there? I'm always one for steps. At this point in my life, one of the things I enjoy the most is making horses, and training horses. And I had a young horse here that I raised, broke it myself, and she turned out to be a heck of a bulldogging horse. She's not the fastest, definitely not the fastest, but fundamentally, she's one of the best horses I've ever seen, and even on TV for that matter. But it's all about the foundation, and I started with a good foundation with her, taught her box work. It's one thing to say, I think this horse will steer wrestle, and to, rip it in the box and go chase down a steer and see if it actually does it. And it's another thing to take the time, put the time into it to, okay, this horse might steer wrestle, but I'm gonna make it and see if it works out that way. See if it'll score a steer, see if it'll run down beside a steer. And I put a lot of time. I call her Tiny. I put a lot of time into Tiny before I ever even jumped a steer. And in fact, the first time we ever tried to jump a steer was at our bull riding clinic. And my goal, we're speaking of goals, my goal was to be jumping steers on her at the end of that summer. So we took her out and we tried her, and I think we actually jumped 4 or 5 steers and caught them off of her in that very first time we tried her. So then it was game on. It was like, it was just my magic moment at that time, and I was in love with her. I just instantly, like a month later, we hit the first rodeo, hauled her down there. She ran great. I don't remember if I caught my steer at that rodeo. It was down above Philadelphia, Painted Pony Rodeo. But what I remember from that rodeo, what we found out was one thing I did not work with Tiny was loading on the trailer.
We were there for a while.
We were there for a while, about 2 hours trying to get her to load back on the trailer.
Yes.
So, there's many aspects to rodeos are wild, and there's so many aspects to every part of it. And, just like loading a horse on and off a trailer, that was one thing that I missed. Yep. And I had never had to do it until that point. And then I realized, but till the next week, we got it on and off the trailer loading just fine. So,
going back a while to the steer wrestling clinic, after that summer, after you jumped steers off of her, that clinic, the people that did not have horses to ride to get steers on, she was a haul, and there was probably 10 different people that rode her at the steer wrestling clinic that year.
Last year, I was super proud of her. They're pretty hard on her for the steer wrestling clinic, because a lot of the kids that come to the steer wrestling clinic obviously don't have horses. So we're light on horses to start with. If they do have horses, they're usually green or something that, they're trying to also steer wrestle and make a horse at the same time. So to get these, kids or guys that are standing around without horses, some type of experience, and with my background of having guys help me when I was growing up, I'm more than willing to let, somebody rip down through the arena at that speed and try and jump off onto a steer that they hope to catch. And last year, I think we left 7 or 8 different guys ride her, and 5 of them actually caught a steer off of her. So I was super proud of her.
Yeah.
So, and them are guys that, in a sense, have never tried it before.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was gonna say that's probably tough too, because I'm sure at least some of those guys probably have very limited, if any, like horse riding experience. So
right, probably not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess as far as goals, at this point for myself, it's just growing Rocky Ridge. Me and Kate recently bought some ground out the road that'll allow us to go a little more crazier and buy even more animals for more pasture ground, farm ground, all the things. We've done a few smaller road shows, kind of like small fair shows, with like kind of like a less than full rodeo type deal. We've been asked to do a few more of those this year. We've been asked to do some Western shows, Kate Trick rides, and she's been friends with Austin Anderson from Texas for a number of years now. We've been going down to Frontier Town during the summers, and she fills in for the girls so that they can get a break. And at this point, we have a show booked in Long Island in September. We're supposed to go do. It'll be a different experience because of how far away from home it is for us, and in the sense that we're doing it for Austin, and he kind of threw us out there and said, take care of the whole thing for me. Like, we can't be there.
Yeah.
We had one we thought we was going to get booked in Michigan, and that kind of fell through. It was a 7-day one, I think. So that would have been another experience, which at this point I'm okay with. I'm older, it's hard to compete with 20-year-olds constantly. I'll be 41 tomorrow. Yeah, and my body, for years now, I've been feeling, when I turned 36, I felt my body changing. Well, I felt my body changing before that, but it didn't heal as fast. The same bumps and bruises were taking weeks longer, twice as long. And I separated a rib when I was at 36 there and stuff, and got to experience that the first time. And yeah, the pain has never really subsided since. Now I'm dealing with pinched nerves, torn ACLs. I think I'm up to, I fractured a bone in my knee skiing this winter. So that puts me at 18 known bones that I've broken. So yeah, I guess going forward, my goal is just to stay healthy and survive at this point. My rodeo competing days are probably done unless I would start team roping. Steer wrestling, I don't even feel comfortable anymore. My knees hitting the ground with that much force with blown out ACLs. So, but yeah, I still enjoy roping horses. I love them roping horses. So that's my goals going forward. Do you boys have goals for the summer? None.
Just keep riding and keep improving.
Yeah. Just try, stick it out.
Find girlfriends.
Not on that verge yet.
That's a good call.
Beware of them girls. They'll slow the rodeo career down quick.
Yeah, it's true.
They're expensive too.
Yeah, that's another downfall, I guess.
Yep. Clay's going downhill now.
Yeah. Clay,
He's done for. He was doing so good.
Went down to Texas.
I know he'll listen to this one, so.
He'll be roping soon.
Listen now. Still a little young.
But that's all you guys got for goals? Nothing far out that you can make smaller goals to step towards?
Well, what he said, definitely would like to make the PBR someday. I feel like that's a high goal for now, but it can set smaller goals up until you get to that point. And the only way you're going to get better is just keep doing it. I feel that's the best way to get better at pretty much anything professionally. You just got to keep doing it to get better. Yeah, if you don't keep doing it, you're not going to get better. So,
I guess if there's a piece of advice on goals that I could give looking back, I know when I was younger, I was taught to rope fairly young, and I had my head set at a 15, 16-year-old that I was going to ride bulls till I was 40. I wanted to ride in a PBR, same thing, that was all I wanted to do was ride bulls, and then broncs. That changed abruptly at 17. I could no longer, I was not able to ride for a year and a half. I did try and come back and ride, but mentally I wasn't there. So you never know when that'll change. So fortunately, I had that background in roping that I never really cared for. I never really liked at that point, but I had it. And that helped me with my steer wrestling. Being well-rounded is what I call a cowboy. If you want to be a bull rider, fine, then call yourself a bull rider. But a cowboy is you can do all aspects, or you'll try. At least you'll try. And it's how you carry yourself through life also, being respectful to others, respecting the sport, and giving the sport a good name. That's what makes a cowboy to me. Otherwise, you're just a bull rider or a calf ripper or whatever you are. But yeah, going. If I could give advice to, and which I have, my son numerous times, both of my boys, would be to pick up a rope, and throw a rope around. If you love rodeo, there's many aspects to rodeo, and you might never calf rope, but at least if your back's broke, in a year, and you can never ride bulls again,
You can rope.
you can at least go out and you can help me rope a bull in the pasture and drag it into the trailer or something like that. You have that skill.
Yeah.
And that's the part of rodeo and this life that I love and I live for. And yeah, looking back, I wished I would have taken that advice that, guys had given me at that time, in that sense of being well-rounded, and took it to heart and listened to it. Because I don't know, things maybe would have been a little bit different for me. So
Yeah. No, it's really cool advice to hear, especially right now, because honestly, I kind of try to rope the dummy a couple times every day now, just because I'm like, that's something I feel like, regardless, I want to be able to do. You know what I mean? And if it is like, hey, we got a bull out or something, like someone could call me and like I could actually help type thing.
Exactly.
But
Might not be the best at it, but you can at least help.
yeah, but no, I think that's awesome advice in that department.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
well, yeah, I said I calf roped, saddle bronc rope. My favorite event was the saddle bronc riding. I as a young kid going to Harrisburg and watching the rodeos and stuff, I loved the saddle bronc riding. And at that time in this area in the Northeast, there was some good riders, and so that was my end goal when I was young. But looking back, calf roping is the event I enjoyed the most. I steer wrestled since I was 14. I was lucky enough I steer wrestled for 26 years. 26 years of steer wrestling, and calf roping was my favorite event. And I did that for 3 to 4 years. Well, maybe a little bit longer, but I was competitive for 3 or 4 years. Well, I wasn't even really competitive, but and it was the one I enjoyed the most because it looks easy, but it was probably the most complicated to learn.
Yeah.
It was like a puzzle, and to get that horse to work with you, that was what I enjoyed, was figuring that. I had a few different horses that I used and tried, and some I loved and some didn't work out. But that challenge of getting it to work out was, that was probably the most exciting thing for me in my rodeo career.
Yeah. If we want to kind of pivot off that, since we're kind of doing advice type stuff, do you have any advice for someone listening, like a young kid that thinks they want a rodeo, whether it be, hey, I want to do all around stuff, or I just want to be a bull rider, I want to be a calf roper, I want to steer wrestle or whatever? I mean, obviously you guys can potentially help people out if they're local with the schools and clinics and stuff, but
yeah, I know there's some other contractors that do put on schools and stuff. Probably the next closest place would probably be Ernie Hostetler down in Harrisburg, with his weekly practices. But yeah, that's probably the easiest way to go about it, is to find a practice pen for whatever event you want to do. There's roping practice pens, different places. We try to be well-rounded here at Rocky Ridge, and normally we do a calf roping and a breakaway clinic in the spring.
Yeah, try to do as much as we can for sure.
Yeah, calves are crazy expensive this year, so I have not bought any calves yet. I'm a little bit cheap. But I've not bought any good roping calves as far as to learn in that aspect. And yeah, physically it's hard for me to get on a horse right now, so it's just, I don't know if we'll do the spring roping clinic or not. We've had several people ask about it, but Yeah, we taught some young girls there last year that wanted to breakaway rope. We gave them some pointers and kind of, calves to run, stuff like that. But yeah, I guess if you're a young kid and that's really what you want to do, just reach out. And even if you're young enough or just not ready for that step yet, just come and hang out. At least here we're pretty lenient. Even our practice nights and stuff, we let people just come hang out and watch. And it kind of draws you into that atmosphere and that relationship with the other people, the other guys. And before you know it, you'll be doing it. It just grows. It's just natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like the biggest thing, if you're trying to find somebody to do something, it's Facebook, for sure. Just looking different rodeo companies up in the Northeast. Can't really speak out west, but
It's probably easier out there.
yeah, there's a lot more of it out there for sure. But
Yeah. You guys want to, unless you think of something else that we majorly missed or any good stories. I know there's a
lot we
bunch.
missed.
I know there's a bunch. We need to do a garage beer session where everyone gets loosened up more for it. Well, not you guys.
We'll drink Mountain Dew.
yeah,
That'll work. You'll be all cranked
yeah.
up.
If Mountain Dew wants to sponsor us, we can sponsor them for sure because we drink Mountain Dew every day. They would get represented around here for sure.
I'll give you another good story, or at least I think it was one that stuck with me for till now. So anyway, but no cool, that I got beat up or anything like that by some bull or anything. But when Trent was just a baby,
Here we go.
I was steer wrestling. Tiny's mother, the little horse that I made into a horse, I was using her as a steer wrestling horse at the time. And she was a really good horse. Tim Slater said at one time she was the fastest horse he ever seen. We had a lot of guys riding her and using her. But anyway, we was at a show out at Fredonia, Sundance Arena. At that time, Dave Martin was running that. And I think it was kind of like the same kind of a bull ride mania deal. It was winterish time, but we went out there, we steer wrestled. I don't remember how I did that night. I do remember Barbie was the horse. Barbie got kicked in the leg by a barrel horse, and I was about over going out there for that because I thought it broke her leg. But we loaded it up to go home. It was cold, dark, and I don't know what time it was, probably 11:30 or something. Pulled out of there. We started down the road. If you've ever been out at Fredonia, it's a little back road till you get to the main roads. And we heard something dragging, and we seen sparks out the back of the trailer. So we pulled over right away. We couldn't find anything. We went a little further and started again. Well, here somebody put a bucket in front of the trailer, and it was dragging this bucket, and it was the handle sparking off. So when we found that, then we realized we had a tire going flat. So it was just a little bit puffy. So we thought, okay, well, we can get a little bit further. We'll try and get down to Route 80 and get some air somewhere. Well, at 11:30 at night back then, there wasn't any sheets, or the gas stations didn't have air pumps, so you had to find a truck stop. So we kept going. We thought, well, we'll get on 80 and we'll be good. So we got to 80. As we got to 80, the tire blew apart. So we still had nowhere to pump this or change this tire. So we pulled off at the very next exit there and got into a gas station where we had lights and stuff and could see. It was a big truck stop. We called, it said 24-hour service. So, we thought, okay, perfect. So we called the number, went into the gas station there. They said, yeah, call the number, they'll help you. We called the number. It was some guy. He was, I don't know, 2-3 hours away. And he's like, I don't even know if I have a tire for that. And so we got to looking around, and we thought, well, I guess we can try and, we had no tools. I said, well, I guess we can try and change the spare ourselves. So we got the spare off the trailer, took it back, Never had to use the spare before, but realized that it was a 6-hole wheel instead of an 8-hole wheel. So we're
Wrong
sitting,
time to find that out.
we're sitting at this gas station in the middle of the night. At this point, it's probably 1 o'clock in the morning, and me and Dad, being farmers and thinkers and all the things, decided that we're going to change this tire ourselves in this parking lot. We've had enough of this. So we got a Wonder Bar out. We used a hitch out of the back of the truck. We put the tire on the ground, the good tire on the ground, drove over it to break the bead, took the air out of it, broke the bead, wiggled it off with this Wonder Bar, and used the hitch as a hammer. A few months earlier, Dad had turned the trailer too sharp and busted the back window of the truck. And he had gotten a new window. There was a new window in. But no one apparently had ever vacuumed up all the broken glass behind the seat. So Trent's car seat was in the back seat, and I reached down to grab one of these Wonder Bars out of the back seat, and I cut my hand pretty good on glass down in there. So then I had blood all over the place. So we continued to beat this tire off. At this point, it was about a 2-hour process. Now, me and Dad, we thought we was making good time. I mean, we was out there like two monkeys beating on this tire, and then we had to beat this one that already had blown apart off. And then we had to get the good one back on the other rim. So we got it pumped up, and we got it on. We made it home, and I know we pulled in here at the ranch, and the sun had come up. I don't know what time it was, but we was exhausted, we was tired, we was beat. And, yeah, that was a night I'll never forget, for sure.
Yeah.
The tire will also not forget.
That tire's long gone.
But yeah, if you guys can't think of anything else, make sure you plug the ranch. Make sure you share what your social media and stuff is. So people give you a follow and hopefully come out and see a show this year.
Yep, we have. I don't know. I don't do the advertising. That's one thing I don't do.
Get Mom back on here.
But we are definitely Rocky Ridge Ranch. I know we have a Facebook page and Instagram
too,
page.
yeah.
You should probably just look it up. It probably pop up.
Yep.
There's another Rocky Ridge in Maryland. I don't know what they do. We've never run into them people, unfortunately, to ask
Not
them
yet.
what they do. But if you Google it, it does come up as there's a Maryland, and then ours pops up also. But
Yep.
we're the cool ones.
Best ones.
Yeah, if you're in Pennsylvania or anywhere around, passing through McVeigh look it up. But
Big sign off of 522. Can't miss it.
it's not really there anymore.
Wow.
Not really.
Not right
The
now.
new one
It's
ready,
in
I
the works.
guess.
It's in renovation.
But yeah, all right. If that's it, appreciate you guys.
Appreciate
coming
you
on.
having us on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe we'll do one after rodeo season. A little recap for the year.
We should do
Post-season
a
thoughts.
we should do a midday between slack and rodeo.
That would be fun.
That would be like heat of the moment with
Yeah, I was
some
gonna-
guys.
Yeah,
true.
We could definitely do that.
Get some old timers on there.
Yeah, have to get your dad on.
Dan Aryan.
Find a way to get him on.
I asked Dad to do this, and he didn't want. Dad's he's not into this public spotlight.
He's old school.
or promotion thing, I guess.
I've joked about it. Well, a bunch of guys were like, "You got to get him on." I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's never said more than one full sentence to me ever.
I believe
But-
that.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, thank you.